This video's topic is misogyny, which is the hatred of, aversion to, or prejudice against women. The phrases burned into the wood are reflections on the perpetuation and escalation of violence towards women throughout history and going on today. My phrase is wage war against women. This has a double meaning. The first is focused on the gender wage gap in America and how women on average make 79 cents to the dollar that the man makes. And the second meaning is waging war against women and the war on women's rights and how women are still fighting for equality here in America to make sure that women's rights are human rights.
One of the most common forms of misogyny we experience is in the form of visual media taking shape in ads, commercials, plastered on billboards, so on and so forth. Here you can see a couple of examples of that. In an age where violence is so prevalent in nearly every form of media consumption, women are commodified and objectified, all while being denied equality and safety. I chose Drop Dead Gorgeous for my meditation piece to highlight the disproportionate amount of women that face domestic violence. As you can see here, 1 in 3 women have experienced some form of physical violence by an intimate partner at some point in their life.
Hello, my name is Franny, and my art piece says love shouldn't hurt because it represents those who are suffering from their own love. Love Shouldn't Hurt is also an organization of women and men who wish to spread awareness of domestic abuse and violence, as well as provide information and support victims. In a relationship, love can be a bliss of happiness and joy until it turns dreadful. Simply, love is not supposed to hurt. Love is an intense, deep connection or feeling you have towards another person or thing. It controls how we live our everyday lives. A lot of people outside of these domestic violence situations question why victims don't leave when it is abusive or negative. They simply do not understand. Victims may be fearful of what their abuser will do if they retaliate, or they still may love their abuser and see the good in them. The short-term impact, how is it violent or relate to violence? It simply relates to violence through the physical and mental abuse that occurs right then and there. Domestic violence is a pattern of controlling behaviors that a partner can use to obtain power within a relationship. This behavior can include physical violence, emotional violence, mental abuse, and sexual abuse. And worldwide, 1/4 of women and men will experience some form of domestic violence within their lifetime, and it is all around us.
As someone who has been a female athlete, I've experienced a lot of subjective violence within comments from coaches and peers, and even fans just telling me that I need to look a certain way to be considered a good cheerleader. And I've noticed that this applies to most other female athletes. And I think that this is a really big issue that we need to talk about in female dominated sports, and also just as an act of misogyny for all women. So how does being in an aesthetic sport relate to the topic of violence and misogyny? Well, we look at how women are portrayed in media and pop culture. You look at the stereotype of like the cheerleader that always has to be super skinny, and how are those messages translating to how we interact with our peers? Like, are those messages being internalized, and then are we creating like competition within those social groups to look a certain way? And then how are we interacting with ourselves? You know, if there's no body representation, then it's really easy to not be positive about your body image and to even fall into disordered eating and other harmful mental illnesses. So I just think this is a topic we really need to talk about, especially as it pertains to subjective and objective violence.
For my phrase, I chose bite the bullet, which means to do something unpleasant that you've been putting off or avoiding, which basically just to get something over with so that you may move on. And I approach this saying, despite the fact that everyone in our society can feel that way, it really applies to everyone as a whole. I really approached it from the standpoint of women in American and Western societies, and how women are often pressured to meet certain societal milestones or expectations, and have really internalized that pressure over the year and now exert it onto themselves often. So they'll coerce themselves into things such as marriage, losing their virginity, relationships, or work situations before they're comfortable or ready to do those things, just in order to really get it over with so that they can move on and feel as though they're keeping up or meeting the expectations society has set for them. Being cognizant of the hardships is one way that we can really examine our own language and being mindful of our perceptions and tones. We can do this by like educating ourselves on the hardships and experiences of others and understanding the ways and reasons that our words or actions can cause and perpetuate harm and violence against each other, against those people.